Evil Dead Burn drags the Deadites back into a family home and refuses to let anyone leave. A grieving widow retreats to her late husband's secluded family estate for comfort. She finds a reunion from hell instead. The Necronomicon Ex Mortis wakes, and one by one, her in-laws stop being her in-laws. Director Sebastian Vanecek, the French filmmaker behind Infested, builds the sixth entry in Sam Raimi's franchise around something the earlier films rarely lingered on: the horror of watching family become unrecognizable, one body at a time. It's the bloodiest, most punishing Evil Dead yet, and Vanecek has been upfront about why. He wanted a film that leaves audiences physically drained, not just entertained. That instinct didn't come from nowhere. It came from a very specific lineage of horror that treats the home as a trap, the family as the threat, and violence as something to be felt in the gut, not counted in gallons. Every family tree needs a root, and this one is unusually direct. Before Vanecek ever stepped behind the camera, before the franchise had 5 other entries to answer to, there was a cabin, a book bound in human skin, and a group of friends who stopped being people. The original film didn't just start a franchise, it built the template Burn is still running on: isolation, possession, and a body count made of people you were supposed to trust. This is where the family stopped being safe.
Two spades, jack of diamonds, jack of clubs!
Why have you disturbed our sleep? Awakened us from our ancient slumber. You will die!
Sam Raimi's debut feature runs on almost nothing. A handful of actors, a cabin, and a camera that refuses to sit still. And that's exactly why it still works. The plot is skeletal by design. 5 friends, a remote cabin, a book that shouldn't have been read aloud. What it invents, almost by accident, is the shape every possession film in this lineage would eventually borrow. The threat isn't external, it's the people in the room with you. One at a time, until you're the last person left who's still yourself. Burn doesn't just descend from this film, it's a direct sequel to its own family line, 6 installments removed, but the DNA is unmistakable in the specifics, the reading of the text that shouldn't be read, the transformation that turns loved ones into something gleefully cruel, the sense that the house itself has become complicit. Raimi shot it fast, cheap, and mean, and that meanness is the through line. Every film in this list, in its own decade, is chasing some version of that same feeling, being trapped somewhere that used to be safe, with people who used to be family. A decade later, a young Peter Jackson took the same basic idea, a house, a family, a monster problem, and detonated it. Where the original film ran on scarcity, this one runs on excess. More blood, more bodies, more absurdity, until the violence becomes almost celebratory. It's the same premise pushed to its most gleeful extreme, and it belongs to a very specific corner of horror that Burn would eventually inherit: a family gathering reimagined as a bloodbath.
Oh, Fernando! Your mother ate my dog!
Not all of it.
Peter Jackson's Braindead takes the domestic horror premise and turns the gore dial past any reasonable stopping point. A monkey bite, an overbearing mother, and a house full of relatives who slowly stop being people. It's a film that understands the specific comedy and horror of watching family become monstrous, one transformed relative at a time, until the protagonist is fighting off the entire guest list with a lawnmower. It's an obvious, almost gleeful influence on any film built around a family gathering gone wrong premise, Burn included. Both films use the same structural trick. The horror escalates through the people you're supposed to trust most, turning a home into a kill box one relative at a time. Jackson plays it for splatstick comedy, where Vanecek plays it straight and brutal. But the underlying architecture, infection, transformation, and a body count drawn entirely from one family tree, is identical. This is the decade where your relatives are the monster stopped being subtext and became the entire premise. By the 2000s, a new wave of filmmakers in France had stopped treating horror as spectacle and started treating it as an assault. Vanecek has named this movement directly as a formative influence, brutal, grounded, and stripped of anything that might soften the violence into entertainment. One film from this era captures that instinct at its most unrelenting, a home invasion so visceral it barely functions as fiction. This is where the brutality Byrne chases starts to feel personal.
Elle connaît toute mon histoire, elle... Moi, je suis enceinte.
À l'intérieur strips horror down to its most claustrophobic form. One house, one night, one intruder who will not stop. A pregnant widow, alone on the anniversary of her husband's death, becomes the target of a stranger determined to take her unborn child by any means necessary. There's no supernatural escape hatch here, just scissors, knitting needles, and a runtime that refuses to look away. This is the French New Extremity movement Vanecek is cited as a defining influence, and Inside is one of its purest expressions, cold, grounded, and physically punishing in a way that has nothing to do with body count and everything to do with sustained dread. The connection to Byrne isn't a shared monster, it's a shared philosophy. Vanecek has talked about wanting audiences to feel drained rather than thrilled, and that's the exact sensation Inside was built to produce 2 decades earlier. A grieving woman, a house that stops being safe, violence rendered so grounded it stops feeling stylized. Byrne's supernatural, where Inside stays human, but the DNA, brutal, French, unflinching, runs directly from one film to the other. The French extremity movement didn't stay in the 2000s. It evolved. And one of its clearest inheritors arrived mid-decade with a story about appetite, transformation, and a body that stops obeying its owner. It's grounded where earlier extremity was theatrical, intimate where it was operatic, but no less punishing. If Byrne has a stylistic cousin closer to its own generation, this is where the family resemblance gets hard to ignore.
Ah putain, elle est malade cette meuf!
Julia Ducournau's debut feature follows a lifelong vegetarian veterinary student who develops an uncontrollable taste for meat, then flesh, after a hazing ritual at school. It's body horror rooted entirely in the physical, what a body wants, what it becomes, and how little control its owner has over the transformation. Ducournau shoots it with the same grounded, unglamorous brutality that defines the extremity movement, refusing to let the horror slide into camp, even at its most extreme.
The lineage to Byrne runs through technique as much as theme. Both films are interested in transformation as something visceral and involuntary. A body stops being itself, and the horror is watching that happen in real time, at close range, without cutting away. Raw carries the French extremity torch into a new decade, and a more character-driven register, proving the movement Vanecek cites as formative didn't end in the 2000s. It kept evolving, kept getting more intimate, and kept insisting that the most disturbing violence is the kind that happens to a body you recognize.
And then there's the film that came directly before this one, made by the same director with the same creative instincts before he ever stepped into someone else's franchise. It's a smaller, stranger film, built around a different kind of infestation, but it's unmistakably the work of the same filmmaker who'd go on to set a family home ablaze. This is the closest link in the entire chain. Not influence, but origin. Before Evil Dead Byrne, Sebastian Vinnicek made Infested, a claustrophobic creature feature set in a Paris apartment block overrun by increasingly dangerous spiders. It's a smaller, stranger film than Byrne, more interested in psychological suffocation than gore, but it announced everything Vinnicek would bring to the franchise 2 years later,
tight spaces, mounting dread, and a refusal to let the camera or the audience catch its breath. This is the most direct connection in the entire lineage because it isn't really influence at all. It's the same filmmaker, the same instincts, one film removed. Infested proved Vonnegut could build unbearable tension out of a confined space and an escalating threat, which is exactly the skill set Warner Brothers hired him to bring to the Deadites. The restraint of Infested, creeping dread over spectacle, it's partially abandoned in Burn, swapped for outright brutality, but the underlying control of space and pacing is identical. This is what the lineage was building toward, not just genre history, but one filmmaker's own history, catching up to itself.
5 decades, 5 houses that stopped being safe, and one filmmaker pulling all of it together into a family reunion nobody survives. Evil Dead Burn didn't invent any of this. It inherited it, decade by decade, and set it on fire. Nothing comes from nowhere. Nothing ends where it started.